Welcome to the Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Stacy Wilson Hunt. Before we speak to our guest today, I wanted to let you know that the Foundation has set up a COVID relief fund in order to support thousands of union performers who are going through tough times. Since March, thanks to your donations, the Foundation has given over $6.1 million in emergency aid to more than 6,600 performers and their families. If you are a SAG-AFTRA member and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you in advance for your support. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Robin Wright and Demian Bashir from LAND. Welcome, Robin and Demian. How are both of you today? It's so good to see you.
Good. How you doing?
Good, good. And how was your virtual Sundance experience? You were among, you were in the first class of filmmakers to have their films unveiled in a very unique way. What did that feel like, Robin?
It felt virtual.
It felt comfortable, right?
Remember back when we were like, gosh, I want those goggles. I want to live in the virtual world. Well, we're all doing it right now.
Well, and it's too bad that your film couldn't have been unveiled in Park City because it's a similar setting. You have your mountain setting, beautiful views. But I think people were able to transport just watching the film and pretend they were bundled up in Utah. So it was a beautiful unveiling. Now, before we talk about LAND, which is such a wonderful achievement on both of your parts, I would love to know what each of you considers your most formative experience as an actor that propelled you from sort of wanting to be an artist to feeling like you were an artist. And maybe I'll start with Robin.
Oh my goodness.
You've had so many amazing jobs along the way.
You know, I feel like it happened a couple of times, you know, when you go through those chapters of your life and you're like, okay, I graduated to this level. And then chapter 2 happened probably after 40 on House of Cards, you know, where it's also, Demian talks about it a lot of how you get typecast to play that role for 20 years. And then you do it. And my thing was, oh, let's go to Robin because she plays the pained wife so well.
And princesses too. Don't forget princesses.
And princesses. So I was like, let's step out of the box a little bit. So House of Cards really, I think, you know, shepherded that new movement of just playing different alpha females that weren't only a housewife or a wife.
I love that. And Demian, you come from such an amazing background in Mexico and theater and surrounded by so many artists growing up. What was your first experience that made you feel that you were an artist?
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Stacy, for having us here. Happy to be here. Same as Robin, you know, she's absolutely right. There are many different key points in your career that help you not only grow, but feel that something's moving, that you're actually, you know, moving forward. It's a terrible feeling, you know, just to feel that nothing is really going anywhere. And I was very lucky because, you see, I grew up in a theater family. My father is a theater director. My mom is a great actor, and both my brothers are actors. So at home, we would speak the same language without speaking about it, you know, without making a point about it. And everything we needed to read was right there in my parents' library. And I became a member of the National Theater Company when I was only 13. And as I was growing older, there was always a role for me. So that was basically my school. You know, I was learning because no one wants your opinion when you're a child. No one wants to know what you think or anything. So no one asks anything. So we're like sponges, and our eyes and our ears and our senses are so open and so much out there. And so I had the best teachers, you know, from playwrights all the way to directors and set designers and, you know, musicians, composers, and of course, you know, many of the greatest actors in Mexico. And then as time went, you know, going on and on and on, I think I divide my life in breaking points, you know. Obviously, when Steven Soderbergh asked me to play Fidel Castro in Che, the first thing I did was I ran to the mirror And I said, Fidel Castro, wait a second, what's happening right now? I just couldn't see any Fidel Castro.
Get a cigar and just pose with a cigar in front of the mirror. Just to see
yeah, and you have to add to that cigar. You have to add 30 pounds, which I put on, and then the specific this and that. So that was a key point in my career, because that came along with Weeds, the series that I did with Mary Louise Parker.
Of course.
And that alone, it signified many different things, because then Chris Weitz called me to play Carlos Galindo in A Better Life because of Fidel Castro. So God bless his heart, because many directors, they call you, as Robin was saying, to play the same part over and over again. And there's this guy who thinks that two entirely different characters, two entirely human beings, entirely different human beings, can be played by the same actor.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And that alone is, that's what you hope, to find in this industry, which is very rare.
Right. Well, and also just escaping typecasting. It's an exhausting job, I imagine. So each of you has triumphed over those obstacles in a beautiful way.
Thank you.
And Robin, you've worked with so many directors over the years in film and TV. And I was wondering, what were the experiences you had as an actor that were most formative in terms of that relationship, that were either good or bad, that stuck with you and made you want to tell yourself, when I'm a director, I will never do that. Or when I'm a director, I will definitely do that. What were those experiences like?
Boy, have we all had those experiences. I used to take notes of those very points.
You did? Okay.
The things I will never do. And that being, don't ever start a sentence as a director with the word don't.
Mm. So don't do that, right? Don't play with your hair. Don't put your hand on your mouth. Then all you do is do this. You're completely self-conscious. So I try to stay away from that and do the positive. It was really great when you did that with your hand. That was so beautiful. And imagine that your hand is stuck with glue to that table and you cannot, that kind of stuff I learned from many directors, but Anthony Minghella was one that was such a poet, the way he directed actors. He was just a poet in general. Yeah.
He was a poet in general, and so bright, and understood cinema and actors.
Right. He came from an acting family too. He was very theatrical.
Yeah.
Family.
And theater, big theater and opera.
Right.
And so he knew, first of all, just his literary references were enormous. He'd always go to, well, remember, Robin, when we were reading, Fanny and Zoe. And I'm like, okay, whoa, let's go back to that page 7. He could just recite any line from any book that he had ever read, and he would design a story around it. If he wanted you to bring something new to a take that you hadn't achieved. But what he also did that was really helpful, and a lot of other great directors do this too, is give the actor a couple of takes. If you've got the time, let them just do their thing that they've been working on. And then if you're still seeking something else, then you go in and you give a little story and not just, an adjective, like be more happy.
Right.
You got to infuse it with something to let their imagination bring forth this new take for you. And thanks to Anthony, he taught all of us that on a movie we shot.
Oh, I love that. And do you think that's because actors respond best to contextualizing as opposed to just words, do this, do that, where then they can imagine themselves act like a woman who just found out she won the lottery or something like that? Is it better for actors to get those kind of notes?
I think so. Don't you, Demian? Just to have context.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, everything changes from one director to another, because we actors adapt to the way directors make their films. They have only one way of making a film. And sometimes it varies a little bit here and there. But we actors adapt to that, style or, process. And I work with some heavyweight directors that love rehearsing a lot. And then I worked with some other heavyweight directors that We don't even talk about the character. We don't even, rehearse. They just say action. And so that's what we do as actors. We adapt very easily.
Well, and maybe for people for whom that's not an easy process, then that's actually can be very stressful, I imagine. Not being able to go, like Damien, you going from Tarantino to Robin Wright, that's a transition in terms of style and presence on set.
Totally. Yeah, but you know what? Robin has that in common with all these heavyweights, because when I remember, Chris Weitz and Steven Soderbergh and Quentin Tarantino or Ridley Scott and most recently George Clooney, they all have that in common with Robin, or Robin with them. They don't complicate things unnecessarily, because you will find complications anyway. But wait for them to happen. Don't create them. And
right.
And what they have in common is that they don't need to talk much, and they're very, very precise. They know exactly what they want, and sometimes it's about only one single word. If we have the time to go for a little more context type of story that can help us to put it together, then that's totally fine. But sometimes it's only let's do another one. Let's do another one means we don't have it yet.
That's a nice way of saying, can we do this again, please?
Yeah.
I love that. And Robin, I'd love to go back a couple years when House of Cards was ending, and you had directed 10 episodes across the life of the series, including the finale, which remains one of my favorite. It's so scary when I think about that finale, what you did. It was really so great and really left us with tonally one of the most kind of indelible stories I can recall in recent memory. When you were thinking about translating everything you learned working with David and all those incredible artists to a feature concept and feature format, what were you worried about in terms of how that knowledge would travel? Because TV and film are so incredibly different. And what most excited you about Land as being your first project?
Really, it was, 6 years on a stage, shooting House of Cards, predominantly on a stage, where you were able to stay warm in between.
No bears, by the way, no animals.
No bears. Didn't have a lot of bears in Baltimore, Maryland. So I was thinking, okay, wow, this is quite a departure to go shoot a movie about a woman that goes and lives off the grid. And we shot the movie on top of a mountain, 8,000 feet up in Alberta, Canada. And we had to contend with the extreme weather conditions and try to get 4 seasons in 29 days.
Well, and I was going to ask you, how did you conjure that when obviously you couldn't spend an entire year on that mountain waiting for the seasons to change? How did you manage that piece of it?
Well, we had the weather angels on our side, believe it or not. Even though it was brutal and challenging to work under the changing conditions, we thought, oh yeah, we're just going to get the 3 other seasons, because we're only there for 29 days in September, a little bit of October. We're going to have to come back in January and shoot the winter sequences. Well, out of the blue, we're shooting a summer scene, an autumn scene, and then 4 feet of snow just dumps.
Oh my gosh.
So AD is scrambling, rejigging the schedule, and we're going to shoot all the winter stuff this week.
Wow.
So then we had to do catch up when that snow melted and go back and get all the other autumn and spring. And it was doable. It blew our mind. We were like, this was a gift.
Wow. Well, also knowing you didn't have a lot of time, you had to pivot quickly, right?
We did. And everybody was so on their toes. The Calgary film crew that we had were just soldiers, animals. And they were so used to working in those conditions. They work constantly up there year round. And they prepared us for it, but boy, we had no idea until it hit. We thought, oh yeah, winter, yeah, a little snowstorm, a little bit of rain here and there. No, it is a beast.
Well, and just the elevation alone, and speaking of Sundance earlier, I feel sick for a week when I go to Sundance until I settle into that elevation. How hard was that to adapt to?
I think we were all so stressed in a good way, meaning the momentum was so intense. We've got to get all of these scenes in one day.
Right.
That your brain was half fried anyway. I don't think you even were able to feel the elevation destruction that was going on.
You're so tired anyway, right?
Yeah. You're like, I don't even know. I didn't even know what my name was half the time. So yeah.
Well, unfortunately for you, both of your characters are very sort of downtrodden and very sad. So you didn't have to look lively or happy, really. So
that's true. That's true. So it was kind of, is life imitating art? Yeah.
Exactly. And Damian, tell me what your first impressions of Robin were as a director. Obviously, you've seen her work on screen as an actor, but what struck you about her approach to this material, which is very heavy, can be a lot to get through emotionally, I know. But what was your first sort of glimmer of, wow, this is going to be a special experience for me?
I think it was way before I met her. You know, when you see an actor and when you take a look at the choices Robin has made as an actor, you know that, you know, this kid will be like a fish in a tank, a fish in an ocean or a fish in a river, because it's pretty much, you know, directing is about making the right choices. And then you gather a fantastic crew, fantastic team in every department. And that's exactly what we had. We had such fabulous artists everywhere. And I, you know, when we met, the minute she opened the door in her house, it was like, let me get my sunglasses, man. I mean, she smiles and I'm just like, hello, wait a second. And it was an instant connection, you know. I was just very happy to just for that chance to talk to this actor whom I admired, you know, for many years. And then, you see, you need to be smart to direct a film, and you need to be strong. And Robin has all of that. You know, Robin, she's a real captain, because you have to command. It's a very large crew. You know, it's a very large, difficult operation, and the most difficult thing to achieve is to get everybody's trust, because you will take that ship to a happy destination, you know, to a beautiful destination if everyone, you know, follows you. And I worked with some directors that they try to get that respect, you know, from being an asshole or being, you know, imprecise or being just rude to everybody. And Robin is a living proof of the opposite. You know, you just need to know what you're going to do and what you want. And that is that, you know, everybody else follow her lead in a very, very simple way and very easily, you know, and it was a pleasure to see that, you know, to witness that. I just wanted to be a part of this film, yes or yes, you know, whether, you know, she trusted me with Miguel or not, or if I could be, you know, her bodyguard or bring her coffee, anything. And so it was really beautiful to be there. And it was especially, you know, fantastic for me in my career, you know, at that very moment in my life, and to sink my teeth into that beautiful, juicy piece of meat that is Miguel. You know, it's just like I had the chance to explore different things that I haven't tried before.
I love that. And another thing I love about this story is that it subverts a lot of expectations along the way. I think we all expect these two characters to fall in love. They have a shared grief. They're sort of living off the grid. And that doesn't happen. And of course, there's a terribly sad ending. But Robin, tell me what other tropes sort of in this genre you were kind of trying to avoid, either tonally, plot. Obviously, you had a beautiful script that you had to work with. But there are a lot of ways, like I picture the chopping of the wood scene when she's having a difficult time at the beginning. And there's such a tendency, I think, for actors to play that like, I'm so helpless. I've never done this before. But you did it in a way that actually felt, oh, that's probably what most people would look like if they've chopped wood for the first time. So what were those moments where you're trying not to sort of buy into what the audience is expecting from this person?
Well, in that instance, I really wasn't a good wood chopper whatsoever. So
well, very good.
Had our mountain man, we had a mountain man with us, helping Damian and I learn how to chop the wood and how to fish and how to hold the shotgun and how to skin a deer. But you only get like 30 minutes of that training.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of time to rehearse that. So that was real, is my point.
So you weren't
acting. Really failing. That was, and I had blisters after maybe 2 takes.
Oh.
So you're like, yeah,
really
okay, I understand now when they say it's not as easy as it looks. You know?
I love that. And in terms of the story, what is the message of this story? Because it's a lot to think about, especially during a year when so many people have felt isolated. So it's very interesting timing for this story in a lot of ways. Is the message that sometimes to find a reason to live again, you just have to be by yourself and you have to learn to love yourself again? Is that really the message that stuck out for you in this piece?
That is definitely one of them, that everyone deals with grief and loss in different ways. And this is one person's journey of her dealing with it. And she felt that she needed to erase herself. Because that person that once existed, that person that she always knew, will never be again. Because of this unfathomable event that happened in her life. And going off the grid or going to be alone, is it, yes, to find yourself, to find a new self? Is it to prove to yourself that you can survive on your own? Some people say, well, it was a manufactured suicide mission. Who knows? When you're in that state of mind, who knows? Do you even know what you're doing? You're just going to a different place, doing it your way. But really the second message of this movie, and why I really wanted to make this film, and it's so ironic that it's coming out right now, is that it's about the empowerment of coming out on the other side, of losing faith, of feeling that you will never live again. And that's human resilience. And Miguel comes into her life, and that's human kindness. He knows exactly what she's going through because he's been there before. And he guides her, he walks next to her, and they have this incredible platonic bond that was so beautiful on the page. And I just thought, that's such a beautiful message to send out today when we're all going through our own kind of trauma. Many are going through incredible loss and have been. And this is about, yes, people need each other to get through difficult times. And it makes you want to have a renewed sense of faith and hope in life again.
And also just taking stock too of how important relationships are. And here she is stripped from technology and belongings and material possessions, and just sort of down to the bare essence of human connection. And I think that's what, even in the most spare environment, she finds this person. And that's what I think is really beautiful. Yeah. That's
so great. I love that you said that. That's so true. It is about relationships that we're experiencing in this COVID year, where some of our relationships have waned because we're not around those people. And some have become stronger.
True. And you kind of have seen, and maybe I don't know if you've seen this in your own friendships, certain people have emerged surprisingly sort of loyal and others have sort of faded. It's been the people you've sort of come to rely on are sort of not there, but then these other people have kind of shown themselves to be kind of surprising. Damian, have you seen that in your own life?
Absolutely. I mean, in different ways. I think that a key element in this story is that, as Robin was saying, that we all deal with grief in different ways, but it is a process that demands a great deal of you alone in order to go to the next step. Sometimes that happens naturally, and sometimes you have to look for it. You have to create it. You have to create that space. You have to do what Edie does, just encapsulate herself from the world, from life as we know it, and just try to be with herself on her own, and see what kind of a human being is there inside the grief, and what are the chances of becoming a better human being after that. I think it's only when you open your heart and you're ready to get help, that help happens. And that, to me, it's a beautiful, thing in this film, that Miguel just lands in her life at the right time, exactly when it's time for her to move to the next step of being helped. And yes, you need to be generous to help somebody else, especially if you have never seen that person before in your life. But you have to be extra generous to open your heart and receive, and let yourself, being helped. And I think that element is crucial in these times, in these crazy times, because one of the saddest things of this pandemic is the people who are dying alone. Mm-hmm. And this has been, my heart goes to every single family who have lost a loved one, especially in these circumstances, because just the thought of it, the idea of not being able to say goodbye to your loved ones and to hug them and be there with them and just, it's a small little pause until we meet again. You know what I mean? Because we're all going to die anyway. That's the only thing that it's, a sure thing. And we will meet soon, but not to be able to do that, to hug you, or, to be with them, to speak to them into the ears. So the fact that we represent that part of humanity that is still so much needed in this, these crazy times, about generosity and being, so empathetic with other human beings, I think that represents us in the best way possible, because that's the best of us as humans.
So true. I can't add anything to that. That was so beautiful.
I know, right?
I cannot possibly follow that with any, quippy statement of any kind, so I won't even try. And Robin and Demian too, when you think back on making this movie, which probably feels like a fever dream in a lot of ways, you were sleep deprived, you were probably starving, you were dehydrated. You think back on it, you probably can't believe you even pulled it off. But are you able to think of a day or a scene or a sequence that you shot where everything fell into place and you just looked at each other and you thought, oh, this is why we're here. This is the magic that I was hoping would unfold. Can you think of something like that happened?
I really feel like it's the scene with Demian and I in the field when we're sitting up against trees.
I love that.
And we stripped so much dialogue from that scene, just exposition, finding out the details of each other's life. We just went, let's just strip it, make it really lean.
Yeah.
And I loved the way it was written, where he starts talking about what he does, which is very important in the story, to know that does exist, this organization that Hispanics work for, and they bring fresh water to the reservations. Because that's such a civil servant job. And, he's such a saint, Miguel. And the fact that he just offers it and then he takes a breath and he goes, I'm sorry, did you ask me that? Or did I just ramble? And I was like, that's a great, I don't know, it felt very ingenious, to have that, because that is the scene in the middle of the movie where you're going to find out about these people.
Right. And there's a tendency to what we would call info dump, where we hear just this whole exposition, the whole backstory. And I actually like that we don't know until those final moments, because really the circumstances that brought them together are less important than the connection that they're creating with each other.
Exactly.
So the tragedies, while terrible and unfathomable, those are actually secondary for me. And that's why we find out at the end, because regardless, they have a connection, whatever brought them together. It's very true. And on that front, did you improv it all together? In terms of either stripping dialogue or just kind of saying, hey, I think we got this, let's move on.
I don't know. Did we, Demian? I don't think we did very much.
Only when I make the bacon. When I fried the bacon, I went crazy there. I was just eating the strips like a doggy doing tricks.
Can I tell you how difficult it was doing the sound design and post-production? Because all you heard was Demian eating the crunchy bacon. You were in my path. You were in my path. I was like, okay, we got to do a take where he's not eating.
He was hungry. Come on. He was
really hungry. He was on the top of a mountain with no food.
I needed fat under that weather,
and actually, on that note, how did you guys stay fed and hydrated while you were shooting? Because obviously, you have to stay filled with protein and energy while you're shooting in those environments. I mean, how difficult was that? Was Crafty set up outside the cabin? I mean, how did that work?
It was, they couldn't leave food out because of the bears.
Right.
So they would roll it down in this makeshift wheelbarrow with all the craft service snacks, and everybody would grab their sandwich or whatever. And then she would go back to the trailer and lock up the food, because that bear came one day and got a hamburger off the table. And then he returned every single day after that. So we couldn't leave any. But Damien, you drank, I think, enough mint tea that the mint tea companies should basically make you a sponsor.
Or a partner, right? Yeah.
Or a partner. You
Or a
should.
partner.
You should make some percentage on that.
I love that.
You know,
And-
that's a trick that I learned when I shot The Hateful Eight up in the mountains of Colorado with Tarantino. Tarantino wanted the real breath coming out of her mouth. So they would walk around the set with really hot tea, you know, extremely hot tea. And that creates that because they're warmer inside and the colder outside. Then boom, you have like a flame coming up. And little did I know that kept me warm. So I adopted it from there.
It's a good
I think you actually put your body in your little canister, your thermos. I think you want to like dip his toes in there to stay warm.
Yes.
Well, I would love to know in closing, Robin and Damien too, what do you wish directors better understood about how to work with actors? Because, and you gave that great anecdote at the beginning about sort of contextualizing feedback instead of saying, don't say, offer up, in vignettes, if you will. Is there anything else that you would advise directors to keep in mind when they're working with actors in order to get the best performances possible?
What do you think, Damien?
I've been so lucky, man. I haven't really worked with assholes, and only great, creative, fantastic, 5 stars, artists. And as I said before, they all have that in common, including Robin. And there's one thing that Steven Soderbergh used to do, and I think it's pretty good, and Robin does that too. He asks us, their actors, they ask, which day do you like better? They make a note, because we know. We know which take it's, I think I nailed it over there. Just take a look at it. I might be wrong. We're usually wrong anyway. So, but that's that feeling of it. Sometimes some directors consider that and make a note of it, and then that's most of the time the one they use.
That is so great, and it's so interesting too because you're right. An actor knows right away. It's like being a comedian. If the joke has landed. Exactly. And the director is so consumed, he or she may not know until they're in the edit bay and they forgot that first take. And then they forgot, but Damien actually liked this first one. And then you sort of have told them, subconsciously choose that one.
Right.
It's so true.
And how about you, Robin, especially having directed yourself, which is a monumental task unto itself? What do you wish, some of the directors you worked with in your life that maybe weren't so great, what do you wish they better understood about your process as an actor?
I think if you leave the actor alone, step one, just leave them alone. The minute you start giving too much direction, and I made this mistake on House of Cards, and I learned from this mistake, because you have your ideas that you want to share in the morning before we roll camera. And I found sometimes that I was talking too much. I was giving too much of my note. Let them bring it to you. And if there's a little nugget that you're missing emotionally, the director wants, that's when you can go in and just gently kind of assuage them into that arena. But it's about carefully choosing your words. Again, not just throwing out a non-active verb,
or a negative, like a do not do.
Or a do not do thing. Yeah.
And is it hard? Is it hard as an actor who directs to not think, well, that's not how I would do it? Because you are, unlike Soderbergh, who isn't an actor, you are an actor. So is it hard to turn off that part of yourself when you're giving direction to someone?
Yes and no. I think it depends on the beat. Like if you know you're in need of, let's just take an example. When Damien does so beautifully, when he says, you want to tell me about your family? And she says, I had a family once. His look, his reaction is so pure. It reads 4 things at once. It's, she did something bad happen, I'm not going to pressurize her at all. And I'm going to respect that that's private now. And he just gently nods. I'm like, that's 5 notes in one look.
It's a whole page of dialogue is what it is.
A whole page of dialogue. So
Right.
you can get that. You can achieve that without words. And you can do that as a director too.
Just have
Less
a really
is
good
more
script,
Have a really
and
good
hire great actors. And hire great actors. That's it.
Exactly.
Well, I want to wish both of you congratulations on the film. And Robin, what an audacious feature debut. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Aw.
Hopefully something a little bit more at sea level and maybe, temperate.
Yes,
Damian,
please.
yes. And wonderful work, Damian, as usual.
Thank
Every
you.
time I know you're in something, it's
Thank
always
you.
a treat. And you're, just like you said, you haven't worked with bad directors. You've never been in anything bad. Not that many actors can say that. That's very
Thanks.
rare.
So true.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Well, I want to wish both of you well. Stay safe as we get through the next few months, and hopefully
You
someday
too,
we'll all
Stacey.
see each other in person again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Be
you
well.
so much.